We started with an idea, a simple one. We believe that people should have drinking water that's drinkable, and that families have the opportunity to lift themselves out of poverty. Maybe we were naive or ambitious, or maybe just downright foolish, but we saw a problem and were determined to fix it. But ideas can change the world, and for the last 10 years, that's exactly what we've been doing. We began with a small army of volunteers, students, professionals, and dreamers, all wanting to make a difference, all wanting to bring change to a forgotten place. We reached the most remote corners of Nicaragua on the tops of buses and the backs of horses. We were scrappy and dedicated and smart. We learned how to make even the smallest donations translate to real change. We devoted our weekends, our nights, and our vacations to the cause. And we grew. People started to see that they could be a part of this movement, that they too could bring about real change to those who needed it most. Day by day, installation by installation, we made progress. Together, we gave rural families in Central America clean water for the first time, reducing death and disease, keeping children in school and parents at work. Our ovens allowed women to start their own bakeries, increasing their annual income by over 80% and allowing them to provide for their families. Our volunteers turned into employees, our bus tickets into a fleet of vehicles, our skeptics into believers, and our ideas into a reality. Today, we carry on our mission, expand our reach, and renew our passion. We know we wouldn't have gotten this far without the support of our donors, the backing from our partners, and the perseverance from our staff. But we're not slowing down. Every day we reach more Central Americans in need in more remote places, delivering clean water, opportunity, and hope. And after 10 years, 2,000 technology installations, and over 400,000 lives impacted, we're only getting started.
I'm Sasha Nicole, and today I'll be interviewing Wes Meier, the co-founder and CEO of EOS International. Today, Wes will share with us about the work that EOS International is doing in Honduras and Nicaragua to empower rural communities by providing access to safe drinking water and opportunities to generate income through simple technology solutions and education. Thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Cheers, doing well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So tell us, how did EOS International come to be?
Great question. Actually, it was started about 10 years ago. A group of engineers and I had the idea to do something with our degree. We wanted to provide technology solutions for an emerging market. Very broad, hence our name, a very broad name, Emerging Opportunities for Sustainability. But shortly after coming up with the idea, I had the opportunity to serve as a Peace Corps volunteer in Nicaragua. Mm-hmm. And moving into Peace Corps is a 2.5-year service where you live within a community, a rural community. I was placed in the agricultural sector and had the opportunity to work alongside my neighbors and other family members to implement various projects. And during that time, I actually met one of our other co-founders, Alvaro Rodriguez, our Nicaraguan country director. Together really kind of took the idea of EOS and technology and really kind of launched it into fruition to where we're at today. So over 10 years ago, starting with just one staff member, Alvaro, wow. And now growing to working in Nicaragua and Honduras and having about 24 staff in country.
Okay. That's amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about the services that EOS offers to the community members that you engage?
Definitely. So we provide water quality solutions to rural communities. So we're going into rural communities, but working with established water systems. So kind of paint the picture of what it's like in Latin America. A lot of these rural communities do have some type of piped water system. It's very mountainous, and so communities have the opportunity to have piped water. They're gathering water from a stream, sometimes as far as 10 miles away up in the mountains. And they protect a open water source to stream or river, and they connect it with pipes. So they gather some of the water, and the pipes flow down using gravity into an elevated tank, which is still situated above the community. And then from there, that tank, there's a distribution system of pipes that pipe water down into the homes. And there's typically about one pipe per home. So we're going into these existing water systems, and we found that over 90% of the systems that we go in and test for the first time test positive for contaminated bacteria. Yeah. And so there's a huge opportunity here because we provide really kind of targeted solutions on that water quality. Yeah. So we're going into these existing systems and implementing some type of water treatment, and then also providing ongoing maintenance and monitoring to ensure that their water is safe to drink. And so we kind of start at the very beginning, testing the water, implementing a solution, and then providing the ongoing monitoring to really ensure that communities have ongoing safe drinking water.
Got it. And who's completing all the monitoring?
So we actually set up a model. It's called a circuit rider model. And this model actually started in the 1700s. And I think it was actually formed off of clergy that would go and visit churches in the rural settings in the U.S. Because there wasn't enough clergy. And so they would need to divide up and have 8, 10 different churches they would go and visit. So the model kind of formed from that. And then it really was launched from the National Rural Water Association here in the U.S. And actually it's still going on today. So in Minnesota, our home state, we have actually 8 circuit riders that go around and provide water quality services to rural communities. So this is the same concept that we translated into Central America, that there's over 12,000 rural communities, and it's impossible for each community to have the technical capacity to maintain their water system. Now, I said the water systems are very basic, but still it's providing water for thousands of people at a time, and contamination can be deadly. And so ensuring that people have the right technical capacity, the right knowledge, and even just the ability to be able to test to see what's in the water, all that requires some external component. And that's what we were able to implement through our circuit rider model. Got it. So we actually have EOS technicians, and they go around and they're monitoring 50 or 60 communities on a monthly basis and gathering information that can really help monitor and measure, and then also take action if there's issues with the community's water systems.
And these are paid staff that you have, correct? Do I understand that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we started the model, it's complete, so we're investing in our staff. And so as I mentioned, one staff member can support 50 or 60 communities. And then we provide all the training and technical expertise, but we're also monitoring. And now we're tracking this data, and then we're reporting it back to the Ministry of Health or the Secretary of Health in each country to kind of share and be as transparent as possible. Yeah. But we've just started a pilot now. We're trying to transition to the next level of actually training water technicians from within the government. Okay. Trying to kind of transition our model on, because we know there's that technical knowledge needed, but ultimately we can only grow 50 communities at a time with a new circuit rider, and that obviously comes with donations and support. And so if we can actually find a unique way to actually leverage some of our services onto the municipal scale, onto the government level, then actually be a little bit more sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes really good sense. Do those that are receiving the water, do they pay into this in any way, or is this completely free, or how does that work?
Definitely. So, one of our core models as an organization is really leveraging market-based solutions. Mm-hmm. So it's a very jargony word, but what that essentially means is that our beneficiaries are also clients and partners. And so they're actually investing in the technologies. And so we have seen this kind of twofold. First off, we realize that by having the beneficiaries, the clients, invest some of their money, they have skin in the game. Mm-hmm. And it also requires us to promote and provide kind of what's that value proposition of the product or service that we're offering. Mm-hmm. So it kind of holds the balance, the check and a balance. So then they're getting something of value and they're willing to pay for it. But also it helps keep us in line to make sure that we're providing enough value. And then finally, we can take that portion of the revenue that they're also supporting and leverage and invest it into the next community. So overall, about 50% of our products are about 50% subsidized. So they're covering about half of the total cost, and we're covering the other half with donations and supporters from the U.S. typically. And so they're actually investing in that, but then that helps kind of more of a longer term sustainable solution.
Right, and then that
builds. And then to go even.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking that built-in accountability as well, where you're keeping your staff in check and the communities are like you say, they're invested. They've taken ownership for that. So their interest in being more.
Absolutely.
To keep that going long term is really crucial.
Completely. And then we take it one step further, that not only are the communities, so we work with the communities there's a water board, so elected officials in each community that actually make decisions and basically monitor and run the water system for the whole community.
Yeah.
So they're the client actually investing in the product or service. But at an additional level, we also provide training, more administrative training, so then that community water board is ensuring that they're running a proper, water utility for their community. So then setting up the right water tariff, as you have very good experience with this in Haiti.
Yep.
But just ensuring we basically help them balance their budget. So every year we go through, calculate all the expenses, calculate all the revenue they would have from the water tap, and put it together and make sure we always budget a reserve. So for example, in 2020, as if the pandemic wasn't enough, there was 2 back-to-back hurricanes that came through, and just the heavy rainfall really damaged a lot of water systems. Nothing I guess there was some catastrophic. The majority of the water systems, a bunch of pipes were just washed out, or even some pipe bridges going across rivers were broken. And so having an additional reserve is really necessary. Yeah. But then once they have all that kind of balance, then they're able to set the right water tariff for the next year, making sure that each community is paying so much per month. And the average tariff, for example, in Honduras is 50 cents, anywhere from 50 cents up to $1.50. Okay. So very affordable, very appropriate, but people ultimately are very willing to pay for it because they know they're getting drinking water, and on top of it, they're getting clean or safe drinking water, which is very critical. And so that's where we're kind of making sure that all that is really working in a very appropriate and systems approach.
And do they seem to understand too, because yes, there's this, minimal upfront fee that you say, but do they understand too the savings in terms of, time saved that allows them opportunities to do other activities and not having to pay for medical bills if they get sick from the water? Do they have an understanding of that?
It varies. And so, being very honest, it's hard to really kind of directly translate the cost burden. So we're actually right now undertaking a study of actually measuring the cost burden of one person that gets sick that has to go to the health post. What does that cost? Yeah. Because technically it's not costing the person, it's costing the government, which, eventually costs the person through taxes. But what we have really found is just more of the health component. There's really no cost on, somebody's life. And so when we're going in, we test the water. And people, the water generally looks clean, and so they just assume that it's safe to drink. So then we do actually a test, 90% of the time it's coming back as contaminated. So then we would just report that and say, look, it's hard you can't tell what's in your water when you look at it. You have to actually do a test. But then taking that to the next level, it may affect an adult, you may be sick, stay home for a day or two, but it's really the kids under 5, as this is the second leading cause of death in children under 5. And so really kind of hitting that home is you're really investing not only for you, but really for your children. That's really kind of the target why this is really important. And so specifically on the water treatment side, making sure it's safe to drink, it's not really an economics question. It's more just a health and livelihoods question that gets most of the people really, really engaged. And ultimately I feel that, just providing the knowledge, just what is in your water system. Many of these communities have never had a water test. They just assume, and I would have as well without having any of the background research that I've done. It's coming from the ground, or it looks clean, it should be safe. So just providing that knowledge helps, give them the skills and the ability to base their decisions.
Absolutely, yeah, that's excellent. And so, what kind of education or training do they receive? What does that look like? So,
yes, we actually have a pretty intense training program. And so it's a 3-step process. And so first we go in and test the water and then provide them a result. And the test we do in the field test. So it's very quick. It takes about 24 hours to incubate under ambient conditions. So just normal temperature, no high-tech lab or anything to do it. And with that, they can see just the presence absence. Is there bacteria or not? So then the second phase is then we would install water treatment through a chlorinator. And our chlorinator is very simple. There's no moving parts, no electricity. It uses a chlorine tablet, which is about the size of a hockey puck.
Okay.
And so then when we install that, we work with the community leaders to train them on how, one, we want them to watch us and help us actually install the chlorinator, because by getting their hands dirty, they can really understand it. And then we provide a lot of training on how they operate it, how they can troubleshoot, how they can dose it properly, so they can set the right dosing and calibrate the dosing of chlorine. And then we go through a whole 5-series step of other types of trainings. Everything from, as I mentioned, the administrative, setting the water tariff, to technical, just, what are you doing on technically, like what is water quality specifically? What do you do? How often are you cleaning out the tank? What do you do if there's issues with the elevation? Many times we've had pipes that are not flowing completely full, although they have a lot of water at the source. It's not getting to the tank. We realize that there's just air pockets stuck in the pipe. So kind of more of that technical stuff. So we have a series of kind of 5 trainings that include the technical, the administrative, and also just the health and hygiene component to kind of get communities up to speed. And then our circuit riders, our technicians, are visiting on a monthly basis. And that's kind of twofold. The first objective of this visit is to do a quick water quality test. So we're measuring for chlorine in the water. And that's for us, it's for them, it's also for the Ministry of Health. And so we can kind of report back. And so I was just looking back, we have about 8 or 9 years of this data. And it's actually really helpful to kind of see trends. And now we're trying to overlap that with Ministry of Health data to kind of tell what, where there's gaps. If there's a lot of cases of diarrhea in this region, did they have treatment in place or not, or were they chlorinating? But then also we use that touch point or that monthly visit for training. So kind of either a touch point, we try to highlight other new initiatives, new things going on. And specifically in this last year, with the coronavirus being brand new in the pandemic, and so many things being thrown out there that were accurate, that were not accurate, how it could be spread. It was a really critical time that our team was able to get out there and say, look, this is the fact, this is what WHO is saying, this is what's going on, to really kind of explain really how do you slow the spread. And so that's just an example of kind of during those touch points of what we are able to provide with a pretty decent base of communities.
Yeah, excellent. And then you also talk about generating their own income. The people there are able to do that. How does that work exactly?
Great question. So, as I mentioned, when we install a water chlorinator, it requires chlorine tablets on an ongoing basis. So essentially, the water chlorinator is just a bunch of pipes if there's no chlorine tablets in it. So we really make sure the communities have ongoing access to chlorine tablets. And one way to do that, so we're now working in over 1,500 rural communities between Nicaragua and Honduras.
Okay.
And we have only a staff of 24 between both countries.
Yeah.
So it's a big challenge for us to continue to grow without having a huge head count. So we've actually set up a series of 53 or so chlorine distribution centers. And a distribution center sounds maybe fancy, maybe thinking of an Amazon distribution center, but ours are really just a corner store. It's really somebody that's already selling, Coke and water and chicken and vegetables and all the other stuff. And so we're just adding another 5-gallon bucket full of chlorine. And then it's strategically located. So this chlorine distribution center would be located between 6 to 8 or even 10 surrounding communities that all have water chlorinators. And then they can actually get their chlorine tablet from that distribution center. And so we've actually really empowered these centers as entrepreneurs. So then they can we sell the chlorine tablet to them at cost, and then they can mark it up a little bit, enough that they can actually generate up to $150 a month, just monitoring and providing these chlorine tablets to the surrounding communities.
Yeah.
So it's actually $150 is actually a pretty decent, salary if that's an additional income that they have. Yeah. And so we're now looking at how we can leverage that network of entrepreneurs to also allow them to provide other services. Yeah. But right now at the moment, it's just distributing chlorine, but really doing it again in a market-based approach. So really, we can take a step out. Us as an organization can kind of step out, but they're going to still want to continue chlorine, delivering and selling chlorine tablets because it's helping their bottom line. The community see the value of it. So it's kind of more of a sustainable supply chain.
Yeah, keeping that within the country, which is ideal.
100%.
And I think I read too that all of your pipes are also sourced locally. Is that accurate?
That is correct. And so specifically for the water chlorinator, well, yes, it's sourced locally, but there's no actual PVC fabrication within Nicaragua.
Okay.
To be honest, I think it's actually in the neighboring, I think in Costa Rica, they're manufacturing it. But
okay.
And so, we've done a lot of research and strategic in-depth conversations and discussions about what really makes sense to be local and not local. Ultimately, we want it to be locally sourced. And so what's really important, our design, we've intentionally stopped making it more higher tech, trying to keep it as simple as possible, because if something breaks, our chlorinator, for example, it is really just PVC pipe that the farmer or the neighbor or the community can go to the local hardware store to pick up and replace the part.
Yeah.
And then also, just if you were to go on something with high tech pump or motor or something, if that breaks, a community member or community leader would be like, I don't know if I know how to fix it. But with this, they feel really understanding, really comfortable taking complete control of it.
Got it. So that really feeds into the sustainability aspect, and that they are prepared to repair anything that comes up, that they can take care of that, and they're not back to square one if something goes wrong. So
100%.
Yeah, that's
exactly. Completely.
Really fantastic. Just a quick question, for anyone watching who's probably feeling very inspired by this, if anybody wants to support your work, how can they do that? What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, great. Thanks for bringing this up. Actually, our website, kind of the perfect place, a landing page to kind of learn more about our organization. EOSINTL.org is our website. And on there, you can find links to our social media accounts. You can sign up at the bottom of our newsletter. We're sending our newsletter out once a month, and our social media accounts, daily or weekly. But that's the best way to kind of learn and also support. We have really kind of everything I'm explaining in this call or interview is actually listed throughout our website. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Please check out the website.
Yep. And for anyone watching, I will put that in the description below. So it should be very accessible for you.
Cheers.
So, when you go into a new country, you're dealing with a lot of different elements. You're dealing with a new language, a new culture, different government system, different climate, different values, culturally. Can you tell me about, at least one or maybe a few of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome when you were kind of first getting this going, and then maybe even ongoing, what continues to be a challenge in this work for you?
Absolutely. Well, definitely a lot of challenges. We've taken a very unique road going around, but ultimately, on your first point of the question, we've always relied, this is another one of our key strategies, is relying on locally led. And so at all levels of what we do. And so as I mentioned, this is really co-founded by our Nicaraguan country director now. And we recently expanded into Honduras as well. So she also has co-founded the organization, has been working for now over 10 years in this exact sector. And so that's really important. And all of our staff, all 24 of our staff, are either Nicaraguan or Honduran. And that has been really critical to what we're doing, because it is truly locally led. And so I feel like my role come from the U.S. is more on the strategic side, or bringing up new initiatives, but ultimately I'm going to them saying, hey guys, what about this? And then they run with it, and they go with it, and they find the best way that makes the most sense. Because as you mentioned, even just with the language, all of our staff are all, only English or Spanish speaking, but they're all from the country. And so they're leading it in the most appropriate way. And that's made all the difference. We've been able to scale because of that. And we're not coming in from an outside perspective saying this is how we do things here, we need to do it there. And then also just like understanding the local norms and laws and cultures. And I really even see a difference between our two operations, in Nicaragua and Honduras, just the differences and really what's been invested at the community level in these rural water systems, even the infrastructure. So there was a lot more government support, for example, in Honduras, overlooking and really investing in rural water systems, versus Nicaragua, the investment has really been in urban systems. And so there's a lot more slack to really pick up in Nicaragua. because there wasn't that early on investment. And so really, kind of working within those, within that, within the institution or what is the infrastructure that has been put in place.
Yeah.
And the second part of your question, things we've really learned, we've definitely learned a lot.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest learning opportunities that we've had is really kind of focusing. And at the beginning, I said we started off even with a very broad name of technology solutions for rural communities or for emerging markets.
Yeah.
We've been really focusing ever since we started the organization. And most recently, it's really focusing on this water and water quality. But actually, 10 years ago, we were installing biogas digesters, including a water coordinator, but drip irrigation systems, solar panels. And we realized that we had over 7 different products that we were offering to rural communities. Our goal is we go into a rural community, we have some solution. And ultimately realized that we became experts in nothing, and we were just generalists. And by cutting out some of the other technologies and really focusing just on water, specifically on the water coordinator in this model, we've been able to go so much deeper and really kind of elaborate. We've grown. We have our water quality labs. We have so many other resources. We have experts in just water all on our staff. And so that's been a huge investment and opportunity now, being able to really focus. And that's something I even just when I'm speaking with other entrepreneurs that are starting something up, I was like, start with the broad idea, but ultimately you have to focus, be an expert, and to be the best thing at what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to just be a generalist. And so we've really kind of honed in on that, and that's been a huge lesson. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to say no, especially when there's other opportunities that come up, even funding that says, would you want some funding for X, for this project, that other projects? And it's like, oh, how do you say no to that? But ultimately, it's felt really good to not really focus.
Absolutely. Could you tell me about at least one or maybe more than one personal stories that have really impacted you in your work, whether it's someone you worked with or someone that you helped?
Yeah, well, to be honest, starting off with a personal story, my experience has actually come full circle.
Yeah.
So during the Peace Corps, I lived in a rural community, San Jose. It's in western Nicaragua, and I got sick a lot. I felt firsthand just how debilitating it was to try to be productive, but constantly once a week or so, I would be stuck at home sick. And I actually chalked it up to the foods, to a different environment. It was a new environment for me living in Nicaragua. And so, I was, when I first moved into San Jose, I was told I was really fortunate because we had piped water and it was safe to drink. So I was like, this is great. One less thing I have to worry about. But it wasn't until about a year and a half of my 2.5-year service that I got really curious. And so I decided to trace my water system to find the source. And so similar to the majority of the water systems, there was one tap outside of my home. So I followed the pipe up and I gathered the local plumber, the town plumber, to show me the water source. Yeah. So he walked me up. We walked about 1.5 miles up to the tank and where there was a small shallow well that was pumping water. And I looked around and it was a large cattle grazing pasture. So it didn't take very long to understand that obviously just a few feet of ground to filter water wasn't enough to filter out contaminants. So it's really from that experience that I learned that, it really hit me that I just assumed that piped water was clean water or safe drinking water. And really that wasn't the case. And this is the case in so many other communities that, I came with an engineering background knowing in studying this, but not realizing it until a year and a half later. And so it was really kind of an aha moment that I was like, this is really something that can really make a big difference, and really kind of using what's already established, but just adding components to what's already in place to really kind of make an impact.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, that's powerful. Just the fact that you come as an American from a developed system where we take for granted that we have clean water in our faucets, and you knew all the facts and still you got sick and dealt with it. So I'm sure that was really, yeah.
Completely. And even on just on a more intimate level with our beneficiaries, I'm really fortunate when I'm going down, I'm able to talk with a lot of the community members but just how happy people are when they are informed about their water system. And I think, the community, the water boards that are essentially elected members from their community, they're elected to manage the water system. They have a sense of pride for providing that water to their community. And so when we're able to come in and actually provide testing and show them what their water has in it, if it's contaminated or not, and or how to ensure that it is safe to drink and how they can monitor it, it's really amazing to see how these community leaders really step up and have a really sense of pride and even reporting back. And we've gone to communities and actually shared some of the statistics from the health department years prior, and even years after we've been working there, and just showing them how there's like half the cases or more. It truly is amazing, and they're just so happy and joyed to kind of see like what they've been able to do just by kind of following some basic standards and improving the water quality. And so we're really fortunate to be able to be a part of that and actually see that in the communities on a daily basis. And so, to be honest, it's kind of easy to get testimonials from our staff within the communities, because it is a pretty amazing, moment to kind of see how much the water can really improve their life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's essential. It's essential to life.
100%.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much, Wes. This has been just phenomenal hearing your story and the good work that you're doing. So remind us one more time, if somebody felt compelled to support your work, how could they do that again?
Yes, well, so actually multiple ways. So check out our website, EOSINTL or EOSinternational.org. And from there we have, explaining the organization, what we do, ways to get involved, and specifically on ways to get involved. Hoping after we're able to start traveling again, we'll be offering impact experience trips. So actually going out in the country, traveling, kind of seeing these beneficiaries amongst the volcanoes and lakes and the beautiful's of Nicaragua, Honduras. But also looking for other experts. If there's experts in any of the water quality sector components that I mentioned, we're always looking for help to kind of help leverage and take on new initiatives with projects. We have plenty of work going on. Expanding upon our water quality lab, even helping us do some water health studies. So there's many ways to get engaged, but ultimately all that, you can find that on our website, and or definitely sign up for our newsletter. You can find out and learn more about what we're doing.
Wonderful. Well, we'll be sure to also list that in the description below, so it should be very accessible for anyone watching. So thank you so much for joining us today, Wes. I commend the work that you're doing. I really respect and admire the approach you're taking in terms of hiring locals and sourcing all of your products locally as much as possible. The sustainability component is so important for a lot of reasons. So thank you so much. And for anyone watching here at Emanate International, our mission is to promote nonprofits and social enterprises that equip recipients to become independent, autonomous, and thriving members of society. So indeed, I think EOS International is certainly doing great work to equip leaders for sustainable change in their communities. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Sasha. I mean, this is an amazing opportunity for an organization to kind of share what we're doing, but also to learn about other organizations and how their approaches are working. I very commonly learn the most from peers, and so I look forward to listening to other ones, and really appreciate you starting this new platform to kind of share and pull out tidbits and resources of what other organizations are doing to kind of help us scale impact. So props to you as well for getting this started.
Here at Emanate International, it is our mission to promote nonprofits and social enterprises that equip individuals to become autonomous and thriving members of society. If you enjoyed our discussion today, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you will be in the know for future inspirational conversations with other leaders who are making great gains in improving our world.